Today on First Century Foundations, we visit Cana, where Jesus turned water into wine, and we discover the archaeology and significance surrounding this promising first miracle. This is the Promised Land. It is deeply significant to the Jewish people, and it was to Jesus, a Jew who lived here in the first century as well. Jesus, or Yeshua as he was known here, called this land his home. He believed and revered the Hebrew scriptures that told of the significance of this land. And he fulfilled these incredible scriptures that foretold that God would one day send the Messiah through Israel. It is because of what Jesus fulfilled here, right here in the Promised Land, that he was recognized as someone truly significant to Israel and to the entire world. Today, I invite you to travel with me to yet another very significant location here in Israel, to the location where Jesus turned water into wine. Together, let's discover the incredible meaning this miracle had for his Jewish friends and family, and the promising significance it has for all of us today who believe that Jesus truly was and is the promised one of Israel. As Isaac and I explored the most significant locations in the entire land of Israel, I was thrilled when our travels brought us to the breathtaking region surrounding the Sea of Galilee. This is the area where Jesus based his ministry and performed his very first miracle, revealing that he was the Messiah his people had been anticipating. I was especially excited to visit Cana of Galilee to learn about the first century remains of this special site that are marked and commemorated by a beautiful church. Well, Isaac, thank you for bringing me here to Cana. I've been here before, but I've never been inside the church. We always go to a wedding chapel outside. And so tell me a little bit about the place. Specifically, where is it in relation to Nazareth, where Jesus grew up, and Capernaum, where Jesus did much of his ministry?
So Cana is in the heart of the region of Galilee. Remember that Cana was established in the first century BC. So we're talking about a town which is 2,100 years old, one of the most ancient places in Galilee. 2,000 years ago, Cana was a big, wealthy Jewish town, while Nazareth was small and poor. Now, Cana is about 6 miles from Nazareth. Remember that Nazareth, 6 more miles south from here, and on the other hand, we're about 12 miles from Capernaum. Capernaum, 12 miles northeast from here. But we are on the main road that connected Nazareth with Capernaum.
Okay. Now, Jesus and his disciples, the story is of them attending a wedding here in Cana.
Yes.
So talk to me about a Jewish wedding. What's the process? Is it a big deal?
It is a big deal.
Of course.
Of course, it
Yes.
is a big deal. Now, in a Jewish wedding, first of all, we have the religious ceremony. It takes about half an hour. Now, during the time of the religious ceremony, the rabbi will give the blessing for the groom and for the bride. Then the groom and the bride will exchange vows. Then they will bless each other. So this is a big deal because this is commitment for all of your life. Remember, in those days, people were not used to get divorced. You get married, that's it. You are committed for the rest of your life. So very, very important station in the life of every Jewish man and or a woman.
The miracle of turning the water into wine. So tell me about wine in Jewish culture. What place does it have? Why is it so important?
Before I answer this question, let me explain a little bit more about water that comes before the wine. Remember that according to the Jewish law, act of showing respect to your guest is you invite them to come and to eat with you. Till today, in Judaism, I want to show respect to someone, or I want to say to you, Jeff, I appreciate you so much. How can I show my appreciation to you? In Jewish culture, I will invite you to come and to eat with me. Now, according to the Jewish law, 2,000 years ago, and even today, before you eat, you must take act of purification. How can you purify yourself? Only with water. So before you eat, you have to wash your hands and your face. Remember, the story tells us about 6 stone water jars, and it says that each one could hold something between 20 to 30 gallons of water. We are talking about a lot of water. Why they needed so much water? Not only for drinking. We are talking about a lot of people that were invited to the wedding, so they needed to provide enough water for everybody for this act of purification. We are talking about hundreds of people. All of them need enough water to wash hands and face. This is about the water. Wine is very important in Jewish culture and Jewish tradition because you cannot have a wedding without a wine. We are talking about religious procedure because a part of the ceremony of the marriage must come with wine. Because a part of the ceremony is that the rabbi will take the cup of the wine and then he will pray, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri gefen, blessed are you, Lord God, the King of the universe, who creates the fruit of the wine. This is a very famous, very important Jewish prayer. Then the rabbi will bless the wine. Then he will give the groom the cup of the wine. The groom will have to repeat the blessing and drink the wine. Then the groom will come to the bride. The bride will have to say the same prayer, and the groom must let the bride to drink from this cup of the wine. You can't have a wedding without this procedure. So wine is essential till today.
Now, Isaac, when Jesus did the miracle here, there were 6 stone water jars, as you mentioned. What was the significance of stone vessels in Jewish culture? And also, these had to be very large that we're talking about, as you mentioned earlier. So talk to me a little bit more about that.
Now, stone make everything to become pure, which means, according to the Jewish law, if I want to purify myself, I cannot take water straight from the river. I cannot take water straight from the fountain, or nowadays, I cannot use water that comes straight out of the tap. No, because the water is not pure. You need to purify the water, and limestone means purification. This is why, first of all, you channel the water from the source of the water, a spring, river, whatever, into a stone water jar. So according to the Jewish law, only when the water goes into a jar made out of limestone, only then the water becomes to be pure. And only then you can use this water for the act of purification. Then you will come with a cup or a smaller jar and draw some of the pure water out.
Okay, that's very helpful. Now, are there any archaeological discoveries? I mean, we're in a modern building here, but are there any archaeological discoveries that give credibility to the story of Cana and Jesus' first miracle?
Now, over here we see something very interesting. Here we can see the original entrance to a 2,000 years old synagogue, which means the synagogue that stood here in Cana during the time of Jesus. Now you see this arch. And you can see this stone here. So this is the original entrance to the synagogue, 2,000 years old. In order to make our viewers to understand better, the modern wedding church of today is built on top, over the remains of that ancient synagogue. So what we see today, we can see the original entrance, and later on, when we will be on the other side, I will show you some more.
Okay, well, let's go. I want to see this water jar.
Please come with me. Look at this.
Wow, Isaac, that is a big rock.
Indeed.
But this is the jar, the vessel that you told me about, yes?
Exactly. But let me tell you a very interesting story.
Okay.
Right now we are under the wedding church here in Cana. Originally this church was built by the Franciscans in 1879. No excavations back in those days. Later on we learn that in 1999 the Vatican in Rome made an announcement that the Pope, that in those days was His Holiness John Paul II, was planning a pilgrimage to the Holy Land in the year 2000. So since then the Franciscans began to prepare all of their sites in the Holy Land for the pilgrimage of the Pope. So since 1999 they began to make excavations under the wedding church, and in January of the year 2000 they found this ancient stone water jar. And again, according to all of the archaeologists who checked and analyzed it, all of them came to the conclusion that it is originally 2,000 years old.
Wow, wow.
What an amazing surprise.
Okay, now, it's big.
Yes.
How much water will it hold?
Easily, something between 20 to 30 gallons.
Okay, so it lines up with our story. We just need to find the other 5 jars.
Exactly, it's very easy.
They're here somewhere.
If you continue to excavate, maybe we will.
Who knows, right?
Who knows?
Wow, thank you for showing me this. Now, are there any other archaeological evidences of Cana of the first century?
Absolutely, yes. Please come with me and I will show you some more.
All right, let's go. Wow, Isaac. Okay, so this is the other archaeological evidence that you were speaking about.
Absolutely.
Well, what are we seeing here? This is very cool.
And very interesting.
Yes.
Now, here, first of all, we can see this wall. The wall that you see here, this is the back of the synagogue. Okay. We saw the entrance.
Right.
This is the back of the synagogue. So this is also 2,000 years old.
Wow.
And over here, we can see the ruins of private houses, dwellings, originally 2,000 years old.
Okay.
So you can see that these houses were built right next door to the synagogue. They leaned on the wall of the synagogue.
Right up against it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the families who lived here, they literally lived next door to the synagogue.
Right.
So we can say for sure that when Jesus came to Cana, he definitely saw the synagogue.
Yes.
And definitely he could see these houses.
Wow, that's incredible. So we have the wall here on this side. We have the entrance on the far side of this chapel that's built up over top. So they build the church right over the site, as they often do here in the Holy Land. How much of this was preserved? Only what we're seeing?
Only what we are seeing here.
Okay.
Yes, because this is the only place that was excavated in this area so far. Maybe one day they will have more budget to continue with more excavations.
Okay, great. Well, Isaac, again, thank you for showing me this.
You're welcome.
Let's go in and see the church.
Please. So please follow me this way.
All right.
Thank you very much.
So Isaac, now we're inside the church, the wedding chapel, and as often happens in the Holy Land, these spring up over archaeological sites. But tell me just a little bit about the church itself, and then I have one more question and we'll be done.
I will be very happy to answer all of your questions. So, wedding church here in Cana. As we said, this church was built by the Franciscans in the year 1879. The church is built on top over the remains of Crusaders and Byzantine churches on top of the synagogue. So down beneath us, we have the remains of the synagogue. We saw the entrance and we saw the back of the building. Franciscans are Catholic, so this is a Catholic church.
Right.
On the surrounding walls, you can see the 14 stations of the Via Dolorosa, and straight ahead, above the altar, you can see the beautiful painting showing the wedding here in Cana. We can see the groom and the bride, Yeshua, his mother, the rabbi, and the chuppah above their heads.
How far back does the tradition go? How long has the tradition been marked here on this place? 2,000
years. Because during the time of Yeshua, there were many first early believers. They knew where were all of the holy places. They knew where he came, where he talked, where he taught, where he performed miracles. They knew every station in his life. Now, what was the problem? First century AD, Roman era,
right.
It is illegal to be a believer. It is illegal to build churches in the holy places. So they passed this information from generation to generation. 300 years later, beginning of Byzantines era, so when the Byzantines came here, the local tour guides were the first early believers who lived here in the Holy Land.
Okay.
So the locals brought the Byzantines and showed them, okay, I heard from my grandfather that he did this miracle here and that miracle over there. The Byzantines came with money. What did they do? They built churches. So when they built churches, they commemorated
right.
the places and the stories. So when we find remains of Byzantines or Crusaders churches, this is how, listen, it makes sense that we cannot say for sure, for 100%, but it makes sense that the stories that took place, if not right here, maybe in the surrounding area.
Thank you, Isaac. I think that's important clarification for people to remember when they're coming here. You know, sometimes we travel around Israel and people are disappointed that there's churches everywhere over the sites that they want to see, but it's an important part of marking the tradition and understanding that these things do get handed down, and we have to give that some credence.
Exactly.
Yeah. Isaac, thank you so much for bringing me to Cana here today.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Don't go away. When we come back, we dive deeper into what the Bible says about the incredible miracle that happened in Cana, discovering inspiration for our hearts today.
Israel is facing one of its most difficult challenges, but with your help, First Century Foundations is making a difference on the ground by supporting local charities like the Joseph Project.
First Century Foundations has been thrilled to be able to help with humanitarian aid items for the warehouse here. But a few months into the war, all of your stocks were depleted. Talk to us about how important it was to get this place restocked.
There's a big request for food all the time. People are without a house, without work, and they need this supply, they need this help. So your donations are great help. It's helping the Joseph Project to keep purchasing these items and making sure it's going to the right people in the land of Israel.
And we just want to remind you at home that your donations matter.
Call today with your gift of $30 or more. 1-877-628-2800.
In the bustling town of Cana of Galilee, a significant event took place that would forever change the course of history. It was here, amidst a joyous wedding celebration, that Jesus performed his first miracle as recorded in the Gospel of John, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. This miracle not only showcased Jesus' divine power, but also marked the beginning of his public ministry, unveiling his true identity as the long-awaited Messiah. Before delving into the significance of this miraculous event, it's essential to understand the context in which it occurred. Weddings in ancient Jewish culture were grand affairs, lasting sometimes several days and symbolizing joy, abundance, and community. It was into this setting that Jesus, along with his disciples, was invited to attend. Here's how the Bible describes the scene. On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, "They have no more wine." "Woman, why do you involve me?" Jesus replied. "My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet." They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, "Everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now." And what Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. As the festivities unfolded, this crisis arose, a shortage of wine, a social embarrassment that threatened to mar the celebration. Jesus' mother Mary, aware of her son's divine abilities, turned to him for help. At first, Jesus seemed hesitant, indicating that his time had not yet come, and he told her so. And I find it kind of amusing that Mary essentially ignored what Jesus said and immediately turned to the servants to instruct them to do whatever Jesus told them. It seems a mother is always a mother and can exercise maternal authority no matter the age of her child, even if the child is the Son of God. Left with little choice, it would seem, and in obedience to his mother, Jesus performed his inaugural miracle. We must assume that this was the will of God the Father as well. It was water, ordinary and mundane, that became the vessel for divine intervention. Jesus instructed the servants to fill 6 stone jars with water right to the brim, each capable of holding up to 30 gallons. And then, in a moment that defied natural laws, the water transformed into delicious wine, abundant, rich, and of the highest quality. Not just any wine, but the best wine, surpassing all expectations and leaving the wedding guests astonished. The miracle at Cana holds profound significance, revealing several key aspects of Jesus' ministry and his identity as the Messiah. First, it demonstrates Jesus' compassion and concern for the needs of others. Despite his initial reluctance, Jesus intervened out of love and a desire to alleviate the embarrassment of the wedding hosts. I think, too, perhaps, he wanted to protect his mother's standing and make sure she was not embarrassed as well. Secondly, the miracle at Cana serves as a sign of Jesus' divine authority over creation. By turning water into wine, Jesus displayed his power over the elements, foreshadowing the greater miracles to come throughout his ministry, including healings, casting out demons, raising people from the dead, and ultimately his own resurrection. Moreover, the choice of turning water into wine is laden with symbolism. Wine, often associated with joy, celebration, and abundance in the scriptures, becomes a tangible representation of God's grace poured out abundantly. It was Jesus himself who would say that he came so that we would have life and have it more abundantly. The fact that Jesus produced the best wine at the end of the feast, after the guests had already consumed much, signifies the extravagance of God's grace, always abundant, always surpassing expectations, and saved for the perfect moment. When Jesus was challenged in Luke 5 about his disciples eating and drinking when John's disciples were fasting, he shared this parable. "And no one pours new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, the new wine will burst the skins, and the wine will run out, and the wineskins will be ruined. No, new wine must be poured into new wineskins, and no one after drinking old wine wants the new, for they say, the old is better. It's really that last line that connects to what we are talking about here today. Once people have had the aged wine, they have no desire to drink the new. The old is better. That's why people were so confused at the wedding. Why wasn't this delicious wine served at the beginning, and then the newer, less full-tasting wine served once everyone had gotten a little warmed up, so to speak? It was because Jesus couldn't do anything just part way. He's God. He is good, and he does all things good. Everything he does is good and rich and abundant. This overflowing grace echoes the imagery found in Psalm 23, where the psalmist declares, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows." Just as the wine flowed abundantly at the wedding feast, so too does God's grace overflow in our lives, even in the midst of challenges and adversity. In Revelation 3:20, Jesus extends an invitation. He says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him, and he with me." This invitation to dine with the Savior reflects not only a physical meal, but also communion with Jesus, a sharing in his presence, his love, and his abundance. At the final Passover Seder that Jesus shared with his disciples, they partook together of the cups of the Seder, the cup of sanctification, the cup of instruction, and the cup of redemption, which was the cup that Jesus told them was the symbol of a new covenant that would be accomplished through his blood. It is noteworthy that at this final Passover meal, Jesus did not drink of the fourth cup, the cup of acceptance. After they had shared the cup of redemption together, he told them this in Matthew 26 and verse 29. He said, "I tell you, I will not drink from this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom." So not only does Jesus wish for us to open the door to him so that he can commune with us now, but there is a day coming when all of us who believe in him will share a cup of wine together with him at the marriage supper of the Lamb in the last days. As we reflect on the miracle at Cana, let us be reminded of the overflowing grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. Just as he turned water into wine, so too can he transform our lives, filling us with joy, abundance, and the richness of his love. May we open our hearts to receive his invitation, allowing him to dwell within us, to dine with us, and to pour out his blessings in overflowing measure, as we look forward to a day when the figurative becomes reality and we are truly and literally with him in the kingdom of heaven. Thank you so much for joining me today as we visited Cana of Galilee, where Jesus performed his very first miracle, an incredible sign to his family and friends that he truly was the promised one of Israel. Please join me again next week as we continue to explore places significant to Jesus and the promises he fulfilled right here in the Promised Land.